Good lord, that child is just screaming like a motherfucker. Oh wait, can I wait? Oh, okay, I can. All right, cool. Yeah. Hope some of y'all join in. God damn it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that. Fuck around with these dang filters. I don't know what the fuck that is. Not. What's going on, Christine? You're always one of the first ones to join. What's good, lady? How you doing? Hope you bringing in a safe and fulfilling New Year's. Mwah. Hey, shit. I like this. I like this. This filter is funny. Yeah, ain't too much. Ain't too much. You know. Yeah, go ahead and get your laughs in now because I'm going to be talking about discussing some very serious topics later. Oh, what's going on? What's happening? What's happening? Good to see you. Yeah. Get your chuckles on. Get your chuckles on. There's gonna be a lot of serious topics coming. You know, got my do rag on. You know, I've never worn a do rag in my life. Up until like this past year and shit, I'd never like wrap my hair in anything. I would just like, you know, uh, I would just do whatever with my hair, and a big part of it comes from as a kid, my mother and my grandmother, her mother, would make me stay on top of my hair, and I had to make sure I go to the barber every 2 weeks and all that shit, and you know after a while, it's like at a certain while, it was like part of me being able to rebel, and do my own thing. Was I don't give a fuck about my hair anymore, or I'm gonna just let it do what it do. Or I'm gonna take the chance and cut my own hair, shave my own beard. What I'm saying, hell, because this thing can't. Well, you can't really see it with this filter on, but I'm gonna take it off in a little bit. But I mean, I'm sure y'all know me. Y'all seen me before. I've always had a face full of hair since I was 14 and shit. So you know but it's like, and that's one of the ways I kind of, but now it's like I find myself coming back because I mean my hair's still a mess and shit. Like I got to do something else with it. I still got that quarantine hair because it's like I don't go anywhere fun or nothing. I just go to work. But um but like now I'm actually starting to swing the other way just a little bit, and be like start using some moisturizer, using conditioner when I shower, because like I would usually just get the shit wet but then just leave it alone or whatever. But now it's like I'm starting to care more, and yeah, you know, that's it. Yeah, this filter is fucking hilarious. I feel myself using it more in the future, quite a bit. It is fun. I'm liking this shit. And to think, I used to always be against this kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, that's going to be part of. We'll see if a few more people get on, but that was that a thing that I was on for a long time. Is that part of, I shouldn't even just say my ideology, but just an impulse that I had was to be anti-ornamental, or to never been too big about jewelry. Never used to be too big about wearing, like the most I would do is like wear bold colors or whatever. But most of me sticking out comes from the way that I communicate, but and to a certain degree my art or whatever. But there's far more people who will remember my personality, who I was, than will remember my art. Hey, what's going on there, lady? Good to see you. Um, you know, just prefacing, how I'm feeling and everything. I'm feeling good. Pour myself a little drink. It's a little light though, so make sure I don't get lost too off track. Because I did say I wanted to keep this one on the shorter side. What other ones we got on here? What's some other shit on here? I'm gonna remember that though. I remember that though. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll definitely be using that more in the future. Oh look, I got freckles. I'm adorable. Adorable. What's this one? Is this one gonna do anything or no? Or some type of goofy? Oh, it's like contacts and shit. You can't even fucking barely tell because the glare in my glasses. Let's see what other kind of goofy shit we get. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. I like it. That's pretty. That's pretty dope. I like that. I'm not even gonna front on that. What we got here? Like some other funky shit. Oh, I guess this is like a different version of it. Oh shit! It like takes off like the. Oh wow, interesting. So it's like it makes my. Oh wow, that's fucking dope. I like that shit actually. Oh, look how he glitters. Look how he shines. All right, let me find something normal and or something less distracting. And yeah, it's got like some vintage like there's vintage. Y'all can see there's like specs and shit in the fucking on the screen or whatever. But in any case, I know it's so lovely, isn't it? It's so adorable. Which one's that adorable one? Ooh. Oh shit. You're a star, baby. You're a star, honey. They're not ready for you. They've never seen anything like it before. But they love you. Make them bitches gag. Work, 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 work. Anyway, the topic for today is so like I mentioned is that I want to kind of summarize my feelings about 2020 and what I anticipate, about 2021 personally and, you know, socially and all that good stuff, right? And the thing is, I don't want to go over the really obvious stuff like, the racism, the pandemic, because the thing is, at this point, I feel as if you first of all, most of y'all, anybody that's gonna see this shit already agrees with me, or already sees eye to eye with me on these issues. So it's no point in just sitting around in a circle jerk, just congratulating one another on how we express the right viewpoints. But what I do want to get at though, is the more abstract way in which people, the more abstract motivations, or just really to abstract the way that we talk about this. So like I mentioned earlier, how for a long time, as kind of a way to individualize, make myself an individual, and to get a sense of autonomy and separate myself from others, is that I didn't care about my hair. I didn't care about keeping up with the latest fashion, and whatnot. And that was kind of a, of me pushing against, and I didn't think about it so much in terms of like consumerism, but I was pushing against the idea of like, oh, I have to do this in order to belong or have kinship with a particular group. You know what I'm saying? Or that I don't really want to be so much concerned with having the right ornaments. You know what I'm saying? Or having the right, furniture. I'd much rather try to make sure that the foundation in the house, is well put together, first of all. At least that's, the best way I'm trying to think about the way that I was thinking when I was younger. And, while I would later come to find terms like anti-consumerism or minimalism or even asceticism were, kind of philosophies that my life experiences and my motivations were going towards. Ultimately, those impulses were just there, because they reflected what I thought would make me more, satisfied with life. And so, just like I said, I've come back a little bit towards caring more about ornamentation, about presentation, and about, to a certain degree, keeping up with the Joneses, or at least keeping up with the, current conversations being had, the hot topics and whatnot, and realizing that you don't have to just be stuck in one realm of focusing on alternative stuff or underground stuff or stuff that's anti-mainstream and the stuff that is solely in the mainstream. You can dabble in both. And as a matter of fact, it's to your benefit that you keep as many different irons in the, what is it? I don't, fuck that expression, but that it is beneficial for you that you keep abreast of as many different sources of information. Saying you have as many different human resources around you. Those are your relationships and your bonds or whatever and whatnot. Hey, what's going on, Crystal? And that, and that, separate, realizing if you are doing something because it is actually being beneficial to your life, or if you're just being anti. And when I say anti, ANTI, I'm using it as the prefix. I'm hinting at something deeper than just being contrarian. Because anybody can just be contrarian and be like, oh, this food is good, and somebody being, uh, the hell am I trying to say? Oh, excuse me. There's a difference between somebody being contrarian and just being like, oh, you say this food is good, and then being like, oh, this food isn't good. You know what I'm saying? Then you're saying that this other thing isn't good, and then they're saying the complete opposite. That's basic. But what I'm talking about more so is deeper than somebody's religious affiliation, deeper than somebody's political affiliation, deeper than somebody's social cliques, deeper than somebody's family ties, or whatever, way in which they, present their identity and whatnot. Your impulses and your motivations and your deepest desires, they may or may not be reflected in what you do. But the thing that I've had to really come to grips with, and the way that I can summarize 2020, is me having to confront the elements, the ways in myself in which I am anti, which I've done things or committed to certain, behaviors or mindsets that have not been productive for me, but which I thought would give me an overall sense of happiness, or were the best way to, prepare my life and to present myself. And it's just like, I'm no broken clock. I think I'm right more than twice a day, but it's also being able to admit the ways in which I'm not right, which I'm incorrect. For a long time, I would say that I was, or let me say, recognizing the anti within myself, but then also coming to grips with the anti within the world, the anti within society, the anti within, saying my family, my circle of friends and peers, associates, etc., right? And when it comes down to it, embracing the fact that there are going to be these forever clashes, there are going to be these forever confrontations, because every person, every group, every society has to learn love on their own time. They have to learn hate on their own time. They have to learn being antisocial on their own time. They have to learn, collectivism on their own time. They have to understand individualism on their own time. They have to understand loyalty. They have to understand, they have to learn loyalty. They have to learn skepticism anew. Every new life, and depending on where a person is in their life, even if they're of old age, may have to discover certain ideas, certain principles, or adhere to certain behaviors which go against their deepest and most, you could say, natural ways of living. So I made a list of terms here because I know it's sounding real abstract, because like I said, I didn't want to just get on here and just reiterate points that I know most of y'all that are going to see this are just going to agree with me on and just pat me on the back for it. But I made a list of things. And remember, the topic today is anti. And so I'm going to say these things, and then I'm going to get back and break down, a few of them, not all of them, because it's quite a few. But also want to hear what y'all think about what this term may be, what these terms may mean to you, and the ways in which maybe you've seen them expressed throughout 2020, or just reflecting on your life in general up to this point, being able to put this term to those behaviors, to those observations. So the first one is anti-persuasion. There's an impulse in people to avoid being persuaded, to avoid even allowing for the opportunity of having one's mind changed about particular topics, or, quote unquote, hearing the hard truth, saying about their behavior. I'm of the mind that the more I learn and the more that I get corrected and the more I get checked, the more that's a benefit to me because I'll be improving the way I do shit. Or at the very least, I'll give feedback on how others perceive me, and so it won't be a surprise if I do or say this, how the reaction will be. That's also beneficial because that gives you a certain peace of mind, and that allows you in order to, turn those abstract feelings of somebody just reacting to you and turn it into something bigger, playing off of those expectations. That's a whole nother thing. And I think, you know, it's like when I think about, and then also there's, anti-escapism. Not just being critical of escapism for, the potential negatives, but having an impulse against escapism for realism. I feel that, just like there are plenty of caricatures, plenty of examples of people who we know who are fairly delusional, living in their own headspace and have this whole fantasy world that's, of course, centers around them 24/7. But I think we also have to understand the consequences or look at the effects of too much, realism. Because the thing is, so many facets of real life are, of course, tragic. Of course, they dispirit you. Of course, they're crushing. But for the for the sheer, not even the sheerness, but aesthetic beauty is there to inspire and to get something that stimulates the mind. You know, appreciating appreciating taking a break from something so as not to completely overload your mind and to keep all those reactions in your body at the same level. Because there is a certain point at which, yeah, there's a lot of things that are outside your control, but there are also things which within your control. Sometimes you have to fight those impulses to either escape from the reality in front of you and just run away. And sometimes you have to run away from that impulse to just seep within the reality of whatever negative thing is in your life, for the mere benefit of you being able to recognize better shit down the road. Or not even better shit down the road, but for you at least being able to see a different way perhaps out of your situation. Because people are more often to take, or excuse me, people are more likely to take chances, to take risks, which is something that, yeah, people will do when they're desperate and they're poor and whatnot. But there are plenty of certain risks and certain boundaries that a person has who is poor and of a minority group than those of the majority. You have your curiosity is more likely to be rewarded, whatnot, right? And you taking chances is more likely to come with better opportunities down the road, as opposed to you saying like, oh, you fucked up and that was your one shot, so you're out of here. There's also anti-sacredness or anti-exclusivity. I'm definitely somebody whom went from a point of believing in things as being sacred to becoming so skeptical of everything that I, at a certain point also said that no, nothing is sacred. But that's not necessarily true, is it? I think, living in a democratic society, or at least living in a society where, I have certain democratic freedoms or whatnot, the freedom to a certain degree of expression, a degree to being able to work in find a job find jobs, different types of jobs that are rewarding for me on a personal level, and may or may not be rewarding on a financial level as well, right? I believe in the sacredness of not being bothered by those who want to force their religions on me, or their political ideologies, or their their social and cultural beliefs. there's also anti-justice. This year, many people, for the first time, or in a way in which they could not turn away from, because a lot of people couldn't go anywhere, they couldn't go to work, they couldn't go out to any social settings, they couldn't meet up with anybody, saw all of the different injustices in this country or around the world, and had decided or realized that they had had enough, that not only could they sit by and be neutral in these issues and just passively give their approval of ideas about, say, anti-racism, they had to become actively so. At the same time, we saw the anti-justice ideology make its biggest comeback, right? Not even just this last year, but for several years now, for over a decade now. But that those who see a direct threat of granting justice or equanimity or reconciliation, true reconciliation, to those who have been wronged in this society, under these systems, in these communities. They saw all the different destruction, the loss of life, the abuse, the exploitation, and they gave two thumbs up. Two thumbs up. I can't show you the second one because I don't have a proper phone stand to put this thing in. And they let us know. And the thing is, that's not to say, and that's not even to speak on the people who've made it explicit from the jump how they felt. So now they just see who their common, peers are. There's also anti-naivete. Oh yeah, many things have become exposed. There's also anti-naivete, right? Or anti, you could say familiarity, because you could say that naivete, or somebody being naive, comes from them not having a certain threshold of experiences or observations in order to be considered, at the same playing field, or same, seniority as other figures, right? For a long time, I had this, I've spent so much time of my life alone, so much of my time by myself. All I had to do was self-reflect. There's only so much TV I could watch, or so many, comic books I could get lost in, or video games, before the thoughts in your head, the dialogue in your head, thinking about the things that you heard in that day, or things from last week, or things from months and years before, coming into clearer focus. Because you reach a certain threshold of experiences, of knowledge, of information, that you finally were able to put the pieces together and something clicked. I'm a know-it-all. I've been a know-it-all. I am one of those people that much of the reason why people, I'm sure, remember me on a personal level, and perhaps even, defines their ability to tolerate me, or their desire to tolerate me, on this feature. I was very naive, out of the loop. I was very nerdy. And that bothered me because I didn't want to be. I didn't necessarily, like I said, I did not necessarily want to dress like everybody else. I didn't necessarily want to just copycat everybody else, but it's like, I wanted to be welcome. And I wanted to be able to come through and have conversations, and relevant conversations, meaningful conversations with folks. And so that turned into, but then you get pushed away, or you get shown that even though you're not trying to be in a clique, or part of a clique, or that you're a little bit more open and fluid, that not everybody else is. And so in merely just becoming critical of people who are, like cliques or whatnot, you become anti-cliques, anti-exclusiveness, where it's, even becomes, where you demonize, or you begin to look at others as having some type of fundamental flaw, as opposed to understanding the ways in which this is safeguarding them, or as a more effective or efficient way of keeping, maybe a certain level of quality control, you know, in addition to the fact that some people are just bullies, or some people just are just so stuck in their own worlds that they just don't know how to facilitate conversations with others. You feel vulnerable. And you gain a sense of anti-vulnerability, where when you see those whom are in vulnerable positions, you may, in a certain degree, be disgusted with them, because you may think, how could you allow yourself? If I was in that situation, I wouldn't allow blah, 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 blah. But you don't know. You don't know. The mind and body that you were born with, the conditions you were born with, were one of a kind. There will never be anyone before or after that was exactly like you or had the exact same conditions. Not 100%. And when people recognize the ways in which they've had their vulnerabilities taken advantage of, then you become really resentful, not just towards those individuals, but of seeing other people express their vulnerability. Because you can only see the strengths which they possess. You can only see the ways in which they are more powerful than you, or seemingly so. The anti within all human beings, this impulse that comes from the combination of our experiences and thinking we're doing what's right, or that we're just doing what comes natural to us, will forever bring us into conflict with one another. And there are some forms of there are some motivations, some impulses, which only respond to overwhelming force. They only respond to being confronted by their anti and being pushed back. I mentioned earlier that every individual who comes into every individual who is born, comes to life and comes to maturity and engages in broader society, has to learn racism and anti-racism on their own time, in their own way. Or even neutrality, we should say. But everyone is going to have to learn those things in their own way. That's why I get frustrated when I hear people who say, oh, just wait for this generation to pass. The thing is, as the acceptable means of discourse and behavior move, there are still going to be degrees of the shit. There's still going to be degrees of it which people who are a little bit more loose and ready for change and ready to mix things up, and those whom are not so quick to change, and in fact may want things to go in reverse and become more exclusive. Thinking about 2020 and thinking about going forward in 2021, the biggest project that I have is working to fight the anti within me, as well as the anti in the world, amongst others. A much more specific, Happy New Year, Crystal. Change is necessary. Change is very necessary. That disruption, I think that is something that I'm going to have to embrace more and more, and it's something that I'm going to have to introduce to others around me more. Because as I come to accept the fact that there will never be anybody before or afterwards, that there has never been anybody and there never will be anybody that is exactly like me, and that I am in that understanding my passions, understanding my impulses, understanding how much I question my own impulses as well as those of others, I have to get a seat at the table. I need my own table as well, but I also want to be able to go to other people's tables and have other seats at other tables and whatnot, as well as having other people come to my table. That interconnectedness, that level of intimacy, crossing all those different wires, crossing all those different influences and channels of communication. There are a lot of people who stand against that, whether it's a result of their political politics, whether it's a result of their family life, their general cultural inspirations, or something that they found more compelling than what was offered to them up to certain points in their lives. You know, a lot of people tend to become, quote unquote, radicalized in their teens to their 20s, you know? And then we have other ideas, concepts, and stuff, phenomena like the midlife crisis, where people get to, you know, their 40s, you could say, or 50s or whatever, depending on the demographic, and realize that they've been on cruise control, doing things a certain way, always responding to certain things in a certain way, and that they're miserable, and that there's a certain level of flexibility that they want to have, but it's so much more difficult than if they had been working on that, or at least had the ability to. You know, a lot of people, you know, whatever the circumstances, don't always have the chance to express their curiosity, be more open, you know, because certain levels of expression and shit go, you know, heavily punished, you know. But disruption has been a very key component in my life, helping me to become the person I am, shaking me away, not just from the naivete or the not being up on contemporary shit, or not being in the loop of not being able to really enjoy the benefits of giving a little now today, sacrificing a little bit today to enjoy more later, having that more long-term vision, understanding the benefits of vulnerability, and knowing when to switch gears. And when vulnerability is a benefit, and when vulnerability is a detriment. You know, I know, like I said, it sounds like I'm being pretty abstract, but you know, it's like I said, because I just feel like at a certain point, most people at this point, you know, are going to, you know, at a certain point, whatever your, you know, level of cognition is, you know, most people see this, I'm sure, going to be adults or teenagers at least. You know, at a certain point, you can't just keep saying your upbringing or you were raised like this, you were brought up like this. At a certain point, you have to take hold of your own mind, take hold of your own behaviors, take hold of your own motivations. And as difficult as it may be to suppress certain ones or push yourself to engage in other ones, there really is no other way to attain happiness or contentment. It isn't about always making a bunch of other people satisfied with what you have to offer. It's offering the best side of yourself, but being informed by the feedback that you get from others. So many things which have been a benefit to my life, I realize and have to embrace the fact and not get in my emotions, because I do get in my emotions a lot. I have to embrace the fact that a lot of people are anti-collaboration. That some people will continue to go on the rest of their lives not being confrontational at all. That a lot of people don't believe in consistency or maintenance when it comes to relationships and social bonds, or they become really slack on them and become surprised when the level of friendship is downgraded, or when certain other relationships are developed and seem to overtake these other ones, which, you know, have more history. But we cannot just think in the past, we have to think about the present and what is best for the future. a lot of people, there are plenty of people who will thrive off of taking advantage of the vulnerabilities that other people have, whether they be psychological, emotional, or physical and financial. There are a lot of people who are going to fight against justice. They're going to always side with the status quo. They are going to be against equanimity of any kind. Whatever their motivations, it doesn't matter. The fact is identifying and recognizing when the anti is present. And when somebody is not simply living in another reality, but is using their behavior and their power and their positions and using the benefit of the doubt that they have that these people possess in order to always make things fall on their side. Some people have to lose. They have to be overwhelmed. They have to. Otherwise, their status quo directly means the elimination of so many others, or the brutal suppression of it. I can have an argument. You can push my buttons. You can challenge me, and I appreciate that. I get a certain degree of overall stimulation and fun from that. Other people, it's something much deeper. And they make it difficult for somebody whom is more open and is up to challenges and does have a wider palette for different experiences and pushing things in a different direction, that they cannot be setting the terms and the agenda. Whatever walk of life, from the streets to fucking boardrooms and anywhere else in between. But the anti, recognizing, embracing the fact of what it is I truly stand for, what I stand for, that being a reflection of my actual behaviors. Not just the things that I post, not simply the things that I claim, which I'm sure most of y'all probably say is consistent with who I am, but the things which I actually commit to, the things which I actually put my money to, the things which I actually do on a regular basis. And recognizing the people who stand against those things, who stand against everything that has helped me become what I am, or help the people whom I care about and think are, who bring the most value to this life and make this life worth living, and having to preserve them. And having to preserve them with overwhelming force against the anti. So the things, just again to list those things off, because I know I didn't give a chance for anybody else to speak on it, but or to give their thoughts. But I said, amongst other things, I spoke about anti-justice, recognizing anti-justice, recognizing anti-equity. Not just people whom don't understand it or are neutral to it, but those who stand directly against it, and just accepting that for what it is and not needing to always intellectualize it or find deeper meanings. But just seeing that and recognizing, damn, these people have to lose. Recognizing people who are against persuasion, who will not allow themselves or others to even be introduced to different lines of thought, who will not allow themselves to be, or others to be, hey, what's going on, Mello? You got in actually towards the tail end of this shit. But basically the topic of discussion is anti. And just coming to grips with the fact that I am never going to fully understand, nor do I need to fully understand those who stand against the values which I have. But confronting the fact of when it presents itself and how I have to be able to stand against it, stand by myself, and also be able to push others to stand up as well. And Mello, I know you know this because you keep up with my social media presence And we definitely had, you know, back and forth with others, you know, saying and trying to spread the good word about our values. We have to keep it up because there are always going to be people in this world who are anti-justice, who are anti-equanimity or anti-equity, I should say. There are always people who are looking, who cannot appreciate and allow people to be vulnerable. They are anti-vulnerability. We cannot, you know, there are people whom don't believe in any sort of sacredness. And when I say sacred, you know, that can be, I don't mean that strictly in a secular sense or in a spiritual sense. I'm just talking about, you know, I see certain degrees of freedom of speech. I see living in a mixed, you know, saying community and having mixed circles. To me, those are things that are sacred because those are the things which I value most and think are more beneficial to society as opposed to having homogenized societies. And there are people, and recognizing the fact that whoever stands against that shit, I gotta push against them. And there are those who are anti-confrontation. And yet there's a certain level of passive aggressiveness or having to go around and not say things directly that you have to engage in life, right? Depending on what circles you're amongst. But again, recognizing the fact, hey, what's going on, Robert? Recognizing the fact of yes, I feel uncomfortable, and recognize the level of gravity of certain, you know, transgressions, but coming out of that scaredness of not saying anything or not finding a way to blow somebody else's spot. Sometimes you got to blow up somebody's fucking spot. Sometimes you have to humiliate a person. Sometimes you have to make a person really have to own the consequences of the shit that they say, and they do. Good to see you, buddy. The topic right now, the topic that I'm discussing is anti. And when I say anti, I'm talking about, you know, whatever values and whatever things that you hold dear and you think are, you know what I'm saying, you know, quote unquote, good things to you, recognizing the fact that there's always going to be somebody and always a sentiment of anti. There's always going to be somebody or a group or whatever that stands against it. And they can only be responded with overwhelming force. They cannot be persuaded. They are anti-persuasion. They are anti-intellectualism. They are anti-openness. They are anti-vulnerability. And then another thing, you know, thinking about my relationships and the way that I've, you know, my bonds with other people, there's a lot of relationships that I cut off. You know, there's a lot of people that I won't be going forward with in 2021, and I hate it. I hate it. Because so many of them were bonds that were developed, you know, over several years and through very, you know, to use that term again, sacred, and shit that I thought was, you know, sacred to me. Experiences, stuff that I wouldn't have actually considered to be sacred years ago. So I had to confront, you know, an anti with it myself and then come to recognize that there are still elements of anti within these people whom I shared these sacred experiences with. And that while I still have the memory of those things and you know, evidence of that stuff, you know, I can't take everybody forward with me. You know, there are certain bonds, certain people you have in your life whom don't believe in maintenance. They don't believe in being consistent. They don't believe in reaching out first. They don't believe in recognizing the fact that every relationship and every bond is an investment and that you're going to have to be doing things on your off time or doing things that you really may not necessarily want to do or that are naturally inspiring you, but that you have to go beyond just inspiration or just going beyond just what you feel like, what you're in the mood for. Because we got to also elevate the minds and elevate the capacity, the emotions of those around us and play off of those things. Human resources. And I know some people may look at that term and think, oh, that's like a very corporate term that's very sanitized. But no, but it's the best way to me of expressing the fact of when I want to talk to somebody and spill my fucking guts and just talk about something and just talk about whatever's going on in my life, I want somebody to have an open ear. That's a human resource. Somebody giving me their attention and somebody giving me their you know, feedback. And the same thing when somebody returns that to me. Or when somebody needs money or when somebody needs, you know, saying companionship of any kind. Those are your human resources. You know what I'm saying? You got to maintain them. A lot of people don't get it. You know? So just thinking about all the different antis, to add on, some people are anti-maintenance, some people are anti-consistency. Some people are anti-escapism. They can't really enjoy something for not being what it is. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't cost anything to just ask how somebody's doing, to just check in on somebody, to just return that text. And it's saying, I'm not even somebody who is like, oh, you didn't respond to my text in 5 minutes or in one day and shit. But it's just, you know, like you begin to pick up on when somebody is responding very negatively to you just reaching out, or seems to be burdened by your presence, or is treating you as if as if you're a burden, or treating you as if like you're an embarrassment or something, or that you bring them. It's like, so then what the fuck is the point here? If it's such a fucking burden and challenge to have me in your life and just to check in on me or whatever, then it's like, what is this then? What's going on? What are you getting out of it? So at the same time, certain bonds that I didn't think would become enriched have become enriched and have a greater level of gravity. And I've developed so many more relationships, that I can see going forward for several years. So going forward, if I had to talk about resolutions, I would say it's continuing to confront the anti that lives within me, and challenging the behaviors and attitudes that I've just kind of carried on because, well, I thought it was just the best thing to do. But coming to grips with the fact of like, how beneficial has it really been, and really setting the dial to the right degree. Because of course, this isn't to say that life should be all about one way or all one way. It's recognizing the fact that that shit is toxic, and in many instances creates more problems than it helps. There's certain examples that are really obvious, like, anti-vaxxers, or anti-racism, or, anti-gender equality and shit like that. Those ones are really obvious, which is why I didn't want to, really go into those. But being able to recognize when somebody is just against a certain kind of justice, when somebody is being anti-vulnerability, or using somebody's vulnerabilities against them, when somebody is against anti-sacredness, when somebody is anti-sacredness, when somebody is not willing to confront those whom are violating, certain norms and whatnot, because you don't want to make any noise, or because you don't want to create disturbance and shit. It's like, but that's all that they're doing. That's all that they're doing, is disrupting your contentment and your sacredness. And also, not giving any extra loyalty or investment to those whom aren't reciprocating. Because there are those whom are anti-reciprocation, either willfully or because they just don't have it in them to do it, and they don't seem receptive to change. Because I need that. I need to feed off that energy. I can't just feed off of posts and my own imagination and shit. It's like, I also need to be pushed. I also need to trade information. I need that exchange. And not everybody can offer that to me. And of course, I couldn't offer that to everybody else, but that's part of the growth and the development, and recognizing where you're at, where others are at, and being able to make the best moves as a result. So that's it. Anti. Recognizing the ways in yourself which you are anti, what is actually beneficial, and what is just a reaction that you have to hearing certain ideas or seeing certain behaviors. And also, when you're just being contrarian, or when you are asking too much and not giving enough. Getting better at both. Getting better at recognizing and disrupting the anti within myself, and disrupting the anti and recognizing the anti within society at large and those around me. because all the disruptions of 2020 and the years preceding and that from generations have led us to this point and have led to the things that will come to 2021. 2021 is not going to magically be a better year. For many people, it could actually be even worse. So don't let this, get you down. Don't let this get you distraught. What I hope this does is help you to self-reflect and motivate you to really take stock of those whom bring value to your life and the ways in which they do and the ways in which you bring value to other people's lives. And if in doubt, just ask. Offer a part of yourself that you may not get in return, but that you need to get that feedback and test the waters and see what potential is possibly there. Because that's all we have is one another and the security of knowing that if we move this way or that way, certain things are going to be more beneficial than others. Yeah, I got to agree about 2021. Yeah, things could be even worse for many people, even more challenging. The dangers and bullshit that we've encountered today, the thing is, the bullshit and challenges of 2020, this is not the first time that they've happened. It's just this is the first time they've all happened at the same damn time. And so we are in history-changing moments on top of history-changing moments and conditions. And so we are the first people, we are the only ones that will have to confront it in the ways in which we will have to confront it. Truth. Gotta value others and your own self-worth and move forward and grow. Thanks. Yeah, man. That's all it is. And that doesn't mean everybody has to be your best buddy and everybody have to reach out to every day, but seeing really recognizing the fact what value are you getting? And it doesn't have to be something cynical, but really being I check in on these people, or I peep somebody's content, or I hang around these people, or I have this level of engagement with others. It's but what about the anti? What about the ways in which we don't mesh, in which it's okay, and the ways in which we don't mesh, in which it's not okay? But, that's it. I said I was going to try to keep this one short, and it's just shy. It's getting a little shy of an hour, so I'm going to try to cut it. But thanks everybody who posts, for checking in, for checking up. And for keeping up with everything that I do and just being, with me throughout this whole, throughout this life for however long you've known me, whether it's just a couple months ago and following my content or knowing me for decades at this point, I hope I bring value to others and, understand that I'm always trying to that I bring value to others and that plenty of people bring value to me, but that there's always more that can be offered on both ends. And that's a big part of that comes from seeing each other in different lights and showing one another and ourselves in different lights and allowing ourselves to be judged and recognized for the ways in which we are being anti and when that shit needs to be disrupted. So, Sandboy out. Thanks for tuning in. I will talk to y'all later. We was live number 7. Peace.